Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and I want to find out which has the best camera between the new iPhone 11 Pro Max and also the 11 Pro because they share the same camera, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. Both phones offer a triple lens camera setup with a main lens, an ultra-wide, and a 2x telephoto. Of course, there are loads of other reasons why you may prefer one over the other, but I wanted to take the latest phones from Samsung and Apple and just see how the cameras compare. But let's start with a little 4K video test. I'm shooting this with the rear camera on both, so I'm actually looking at the back of the phones. Both these phones do shoot up to 4K 60 video. This is recorded at 4K 30. I should say that unfortunately this is not my house. I'm just staying here for a little bit. I wish I had a pool this big, but it's a nice little area to do some camera tests. Now, one of my favorite things that you can do with both these phones is actually record in ultra-wide 4K. So if I swap to that, you can now see how my arms are awkwardly holding up both phones, but you do get a much wider field of view, and actually you can do that on the fly. You can change through all three camera lenses on both phones while recording 4K. And when it comes to things like Instagram stories, I do find myself shooting in ultra-wide 4K a lot more than I thought I would. So this is a cool little feature. So let's come on over to Tucker, who's playing in the grass. So this is the ultra-wide lens. And then we've got the main lens, and finally the 2x telephoto lens on both. And both phones also use audio zoom, so it actually targets the audio based on the subject that you zoomed in on. Side by side, you can definitely see a difference in the brightness and the color temperature. The Note on the left is brighter and has a warmer tone. Just look at the white t-shirt on the guy in the middle. They both look great though, especially with the ability to switch to the ultra-wide lens and get the whole graffitied alleyway into the frame. Bonus points if you can tell me what city this is in the comments below. And then we've got low light video, and while it's not quite pitch black outside, you can see the huge difference between the phones. Everything is a lot brighter and more visible on the Note, but at the expense of a lot of noise and pretty ropey quality. But what about video from the front selfie camera? Well, the iPhone has had a bit of an upgrade this year. It can now shoot 4K 30 from the front camera, the same as the Note 10 Plus. Just from looking at the phones, it looks like I'm getting a bit more in the frame on the iPhone. Now, if I not stare directly at the sun, but point towards the sun, it's very, very bright today. You get a bit of an idea how it handles the really bright highlights. Now, if I move into the shade, so you can see how both phones compare dealing with the bright background and the slightly darker foreground of my face, essentially. I can't really give any firm conclusions by just looking at the screens because, well, they're quite different screens. So you guys have to tell me which one you think looks best and also sounds better, because I've been switching between the microphones throughout this video. So in terms of audio quality, if you're doing lots of selfie videos, that will also be an interesting test. Now, one thing the Note can do, which the iPhone can't, is shoot live focus video, or basically portrait mode video. You've got that nice blurry bokeh background, and it's the same with the rear camera. Again, the Note can shoot this live focus video, whereas the iPhone can't. But let me know in the comments below what you make of live focus video, if it's something you would use, if you think it's gimmicky and fake, or the best thing since sliced bread. The iPhone 11 does have a new trick up its sleeve though, in the form of slow-fees, or slow motion selfie video, which is shot at 120 FPS in Full HD. I figured my partner Sarah would be a much better model for showing this off than me. It's not the best quality, but it could be cool for an Instagram story. We're nearly 5 minutes into this video, and so I think it's about time we looked at a few photos. And as I jump through the three lenses, you can see this is going to be a close one. Now we're back in the alleyway, and again, like the video clip from earlier, looking at the white t-shirt, you can see a slight difference in color temperature. If I crop in by 300%, I do think the iPhone offers a tiny bit more detail though, like the hair on the legs of the camo shorts guy and the brown bag. The Note 10 seems to over-sharpen a bit to compensate, but this really is nitpicking. Now, I love how colourful this shot is, but if you look at the white paint, I'd say it's a more natural looking white on the Note 10 versus a cooler sort of ice white on the iPhone. The black t-shirt also looks more realistic on the Note. It's a little bit washed out on the iPhone. I've been staring at this bar shot for about 5 minutes now, and other than catching that lady picking her nose on the iPhone's photo, it's incredibly difficult to see any major differences. It's like one of those spot the difference photos. Now this is a portrait mode shot, or what Samsung call live focus. You can adjust the intensity of that bokeh blur on both phones even after taking the shot, so don't focus too much on the different levels of blur. Both phones can also take portrait shots using the ultra-wide lens. Let's move on to some tricky low light conditions, and both phones look good. But if you look at Mario on the back of the chair, the Note 10 has done a better job here at evening out the exposure. It's a similar story at the bar. The Note 10 aggressively reduces the highlights on the TV. The blue drink me sign on the right is also a little clearer on the Note, but I do prefer the more natural color of the iPhone shot. Here's a quick low light portrait shot, although neither are using their respective night modes. Although while the iPhone's night mode is automatic, it doesn't actually work with portrait shots for some reason. Still, the iPhone is the clear winner here. It's much clearer and better lit. Switching to the ultra-wide lens, these guys are going to hate me for using this photo, but there's still significantly more detail in the iPhone shot. Now let's talk about that night mode, and as I say, it's automatic on the iPhone, so depending on the light, using it handheld, it'll give you a 2 or 3 second longer exposure, whereas you need to switch to the dedicated night mode in the camera app on the Note 10. In this shot, the more colourful, contrasty look of the Note is more appealing at first sight, but it does suffer from a lot of noise, and the buildings in the distance aren't as detailed as the iPhone's. Back at the house now, and this is how it looks using the Note 10's normal photo mode, and then in night mode. But side by side with the iPhone, well, they both do a really good job. While the Note 10 is brighter, it is also heavily over-sharpened. Just look at the driveway. So to my eye, I think the iPhone looks more natural. With this close-up night mode shot, you can still see that sharper versus softer look between the Note and the iPhone. I have to say though, it was harder to get an in-focus shot on the Note in night mode. I often had to take 3 or 4 photos to get a non-blurry one like this. I found the iPhone much more consistent. And finally, a couple of quick selfies. I'm sure you're already sick of seeing my face by now. The Note definitely has more contrast versus the flatter but more evenly exposed iPhone. Portrait selfies are a similar story. And again, the iPhone is a lot brighter, but which do you prefer? And last but not least, a quick selfie of me and Sarah. And while the framing isn't identical between these shots, it is interesting to see that both phones still struggle with edge detection sometimes. Sarah's sunglasses trip the Note 10 up a bit, but I think worse than that on the iPhone, only half of her face is in focus, which is a bit odd. Although you can see the Note 10 handles the bright background better. The sky is completely blown out on the iPhone. So then, the big question, which do you think had the better camera? The Note 10 Plus or the iPhone 11 Pro? Let me know in the comments below, and also which other phones you'd like me to do a camera test on. Thank you so much for watching guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more from me, make sure you do hit that subscribe button below. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.